to head up Constitution Hill to Apsley Way. As we've been telling our viewers, the procession is expected to arrive imminently in Wellington Arch. Now, Wellington Arch is an important place because it's named after a great military and war hero of the 1800s, the early Victorian times, the Duke of Wellington. It faces a monumental building called Apsley House, fondly known to many of us Londoners as Number One London. But you can see there the staff lined up to pay their respects. It's a very, very moving moment here. I can tell you, Don, the crowd is absolutely silent. I've seen some people stand on their toes to get a better shot at the same time as other people have bowed in front of the coffin.
Sure.
As we watch this happen, and when they take a pause, we will as well. What is it like to be there?
It's a huge moment. As a born and bred Londoner, I can tell you as a child, I grew up not very far from Buckingham Palace, and I remember with my sister and my mother, when we'd drive by, we'd always have a look up and see whether the Royal Standard was flying, to see whether the Queen was in. The Queen felt like a grandmother to a nation here, and it's I feel incredibly privileged firsthand to be able to witness this, as so many people among the crowds here probably do as well. But you've got to remember that this is a huge security operation. I'm looking at the crowds as we speak, and literally every metre or two you have a member of the army and a member of the police force. You have medics in the crowds on hand because people have been standing here for hours in case they faint or there's any kind of medical emergency, to make sure they can get help immediately so that these processions go as smoothly as possible. There's a real sense here today that this is an historic moment, one where the eyes of the world, more than 4 billion people, are looking at the United Kingdom. It is going to be one of the most televised events that we've ever been part of, you, me, Don, Anderson, all of us. And just a fact for you here, when the Queen was born in 1926, there were half the number of people on the planet at that time as the amount of people who are estimated to be watching this event here on screens around the world and also outside Buckingham Palace. Don?
Sally, we have seen the Queen Consort, we've seen the Princess of Wales, also obviously the King, Charles III, heavy as a head, wears a crown. He is quite aware of the moment and what is ahead for him. We said earlier that it was going to be a private service at St. George's, actually a smaller service than what happened at Westminster Abbey, and that the Queen did that because she wanted to get more people, right, at her funeral. Someone said, "You're probably going to need a bigger place, ma'am."
Yes, and that was very deliberate, and she well remembers her own father's service at St. George's. So this is something that's going to have two parts: the Westminster Abbey part and the smaller, in a way, more somber committal.
As we're looking at Buckingham Palace, usually we're not used to seeing it this way. Usually it's a wedding or something a little bit more festive, but not today, so.
Well, Buckingham Palace is mainly an office building. It's not much of a residence, and none of them who lived there particularly enjoyed it. I remember when George VI became king, and they had to move over there, and the young Princess Elisabeth said, "Do you think we could build a tunnel underneath so we can go back and forth?" But pretty soon she came to love it and treasure the collections and the history. I mean, it is an incredibly historic place filled with memories as well as great paintings and pieces of furniture, and certainly she has memories of, or had memories of, World War II when the King gave a Thanksgiving reception for soldiers. It's just it is the symbol, really, of the monarchy.
That's exactly right. It's a symbol. When you think about Balmoral as being a spiritual home or a summer retreat, Buckingham Palace is really the corporate headquarters. That is the administrative focal point. It is a symbol for the firm, for the monarchy itself. It is a symbol and a place of where people gather around for moments of national mourning, national rejoicing as well. It's the focal point for the Queen's Jubilee. It's 400 years of British history. That is what we're seeing when we think about Buckingham Palace.
And also the balcony, which is an iconic place where we see, most recently, we saw the Queen celebrating her Jubilee. We saw the end of World War II. celebrated on VE Day and VJ Day. We've seen Buckingham Palace balcony for weddings, for her wedding, for all of the weddings. So it's a center of administrative work, and it's a center of, it's a place where they live, where they've entertained heads of state. And, but it's also a very core administrative center for the monarchy.
Well, I find it very interesting that we are, especially on this side of the pond, Americans are getting a lesson in history and monuments.
Yes.
With the Mall is not the mall.
Not the Mall,
Buckingham
exactly.
Palace, right?